In the final years of the Sengoku period, when the provinces of Japan were stitched together by blood and ambition, there lived a young samurai named Renji who believed he was meant for greatness. He served a minor lord in a quiet valley where wars were spoken of more often than fought. The fields were calm. The castle walls were old. The blades were polished more than they were drawn. Renji trained every morning beneath the cedar trees, cutting the air with precise movements, imagining invisible enemies collapsing before him. In his mind he was already a warrior of legend. In his thoughts he was feared. But in truth he had never stood in real battle. He desired honor. He desired recognition. He desired the moment when others would look at him and see strength. Yet each day, when the air grew cold before dawn and the courtyard stones bit through his sandals, he lingered inside his room just a little longer. He told himself he was conserving energy. He told himself true warriors required rest. He promised he would train harder tomorrow. Tomorrow became a habit. Renji loved the image of discipline more than discipline itself. He read scrolls on strategy. He memorized the sayings of masters. He spoke often about the path of the warrior. But when the body ached and the breath burned, when repetition became dull and lonely, his mind searched for escape. He sharpened his sword instead of sharpening his resolve. He reorganized his armor instead of strengthening his stance. He prepared without acting. Preparation felt productive. It protected his ego, because as long as he was preparing, he could believe he was improving. One autumn, a wandering swordsman passed through the valley. He was older, quiet, his clothes worn from travel. His presence unsettled the younger warriors without effort. He carried no emblem of status. No banners followed him. Yet when he moved, there was no hesitation in him. Every step seemed decided long before it was taken. Renji challenged him, not out of courage, but out of hunger for proof. He needed to confirm what he already believed about himself. They met in the courtyard at dusk. The wind was thin and sharp. Renji's heart pounded, though he disguised it with a rigid posture. The duel lasted only moments. The wandering swordsman did not rush. He did not shout. He did not perform. He simply stepped inside Renji's hesitation. Before Renji understood what had happened, his blade was struck from his hand, and cold steel rested at his throat. The courtyard was silent. Renji felt humiliation flood his body, but beneath humiliation was something more painful: recognition. The wandering swordsman lowered his blade and said, "Only this. You trained to feel strong. I trained to become strong. Those are not the same." Then he left. That night, Renji could not sleep. His mind replayed the duel again and again. He searched for excuses. The wind was distracting. The ground was uneven. The stranger was lucky, but deep inside, he knew the truth. He had flinched. Not because he lacked skill, but because he lacked tolerance for discomfort. He feared the moment where effort became uncertain. He feared the possibility that he might not be as capable as he imagined. So he had built a life around avoiding that moment. This is the rule that makes weak men uncomfortable. Not a rule about fighting, not a rule about swords. A rule about beginning before you feel ready. The weak man loves the idea of strength. He loves studying it, talking about it, planning for it. He says he is waiting for the right time. He calls his hesitation strategy. He calls his delay patience. He calls his fear wisdom. But beneath all these words is one truth. He does not want to feel small. He does not want to face the gap between who he believes he is and who his actions reveal him to be. The invisible trap is ego protection. As long as action is delayed, identity remains intact. As long as effort is postponed, potential remains untouched. Potential is safe. It cannot be judged. It cannot fail. But potential also cannot grow. Strength does not mean intensity. Strength means repetition. Strength does not mean emotion. Strength means endurance. Strength does not mean wanting it badly. Strength means doing it daily. The man who waits to feel motivated becomes the man who never begins. The man who begins without feeling ready becomes the man who changes. There was another swordsman who understood this rule without announcing it to the world. Miyamoto Musashi walked through provinces undefeated not because he possessed mystical talent, but because he stripped away hesitation. He trained relentlessly, often alone, refining small movements until they became instinct. He did not wait for ideal conditions. He did not rehearse courage in his imagination. He practiced. When Musashi wrote that one must accept everything just the way it is, he was not speaking of passive surrender. He was speaking of removing resistance to reality. Cold mornings, dull repetition, temporary failure, public defeat. These are not obstacles to the path. They are the path. Weak men become uncomfortable here, because the rule demands something they do not want to give: consistency without applause, effort without immediate reward, action without certainty. Renji eventually understood this, not in a single dramatic moment, but slowly, painfully. He began rising before dawn without negotiation. No speeches, no declarations. He trained the same cuts hundreds of times until boredom dissolved into clarity. When his muscles trembled, he did not interpret it as a signal to stop. He interpreted it as a signal that growth had begun. Motivation did not lead him. Action did. At first he felt nothing. No surge of confidence. No transformation. Only resistance. Only discomfort. But action creates momentum. Momentum creates discipline. Discipline shapes identity. After months of repetition, Renji noticed something subtle. The space between intention and movement had shortened. When he decided to strike, he struck. When he decided to wake, he rose. There was less negotiation inside him, less debate. Weakness lives in negotiation. Strength lives in decision. The psychological trap that binds most men is not laziness. It is emotional dependency. They wait to feel aligned before they act. They believe clarity must precede commitment. They chase inspiration as if it were fuel, but motivation follows action. It does not create it. The body in motion convinces the mind. The mind rarely convinces the body. Fear of starting is rarely about the task itself. It is about exposure. Starting reveals skill level. It reveals discipline level. It exposes the truth of one's habits. And truth is uncomfortable. So the weak man studies more, plans more, talks more. It confuses contemplation with courage. Time passes quietly. Days become months. The identity he imagines remains imaginary. Meanwhile, those who act imperfectly advance. The samurai rule is simple. Do not wait. Do not negotiate with discomfort. Do not protect an identity that has not been earned. The man who protects his ego becomes fragile. The man who exposes his weakness becomes durable. Consider the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who governed an empire while writing private reminders to himself about discipline and humility. He did not wait for peace to practice virtue. He practiced virtue in chaos. He did not wait for calm emotions to govern wisely. He governed despite turmoil. His strength was not the absence of struggle. It was consistency within it. The pattern repeats across history. Warriors, strategists, leaders, they share one trait. They move before they feel ready. Not recklessly, not blindly, but decisively. Renji faced battle years later. When conflict finally reached his valley, it was not dramatic like the stories he once imagined. It was chaotic, loud, and uncertain. Yet in that noise, he felt something steady within him. Not excitement, not fearlessness, familiarity. He had rehearsed discomfort so many times that it no longer startled him. His body moved without seeking approval from his emotions. His training had become instinct. He survived not because he believed in himself. He survived because he had built himself. The uncomfortable truth remains. Most men do not fail because they lack information. They fail because they resist repetition. They want the result without the monotony. They want respect without routine. They want confidence without exposure. They want strength to feel good. But strength often feels dull. It feels like waking up when you do not want to. It feels like continuing when no one is watching. It feels like silence instead of applause. The weak man searches for intensity. The strong man builds consistency. Time is indifferent. It does not pause for indecision. Every day spent negotiating with discomfort is a day surrendered. The cost is invisible at first, but it accumulates. Regret is rarely born from bold action. It is born from prolonged hesitation. Renji once believed greatness required a dramatic moment. He learned it required ordinary discipline. No one announces the day they become strong. It happens quietly, in rooms without witnesses, in mornings without celebration, in repetitions without emotion. The samurai rule does not inspire, it demands. Act before you feel ready. Repeat before you feel confident. Continue before you feel rewarded. Do not wait for courage. Build it. Do not wait for clarity. Create it. Do not wait for strength. Earn it. The man who embraces this becomes dangerous in a calm way, not loud, not arrogant, simply reliable. His word aligns with his action. His intention aligns with his habit. And that is what makes weak men uncomfortable, because there are no excuses left, only decision, only discipline, only the quiet path forward. Commit before comfort, act before emotion. Repeat until identity follows.